And I'm going to zigzag a little bit because there are three people who don't have the book and one who's just starting to read it. And we've been on chapter 1, I think, for about 2 months. But I promise you today, I am going to go through chapters 2, 3, and 4, and maybe even chapter 5. Yeah, so we'll get through to about page 70, 75, because I want to touch a little bit on understanding what cultivation is and the fundamental right views one must hold in order to make progress on spiritual path, starting with a mind of impermanence. And I think it's important to get that in. So we're going to have to read part of the book and play a little double Dutch, so that we can all be on the same page. I want to say first, before we get started, that Sunday was interesting. And I want to thank everyone who applied the utmost patience of their practice, because there are, some manners that differ country to country, but the strong should bear the infirmities of the weak. And in that sense, it was being gracious to Sayadaw to continue in the traditional method of their countries. And these are societal. They're not like Buddhists, they're societal, so in the whole society, they don't interrelate like that. Remember reading about just before we get started today, remember reading about the woman that was raped and killed on the bus, and she was holding hands with her boyfriend, and just to hold hands in India in public, male and female, is gives the perception that the woman has no self-respect, and they felt justified in what they did, to her and basically to him, because they were holding hands in public. So some things that we think, don't really matter. And that's why I had the room divided in the traditional way, and wanted to make it so that there would not be any repercussions from them. First, like, do no harm. There would not be any repercussions from them being with us and leaving, and going to some other place and something being said and so forth. I mean, they're only here for a nanosecond. It doesn't matter. It's not the same as if they were going to be constantly abiding, then we'd have to have a different conversation, because if they couldn't, I think I had all of the novices bow in the traditional manner, which is they get on, on the floor and they bow. But the bhikkhunis, I didn't, and I think that was already a little bit difficult for him, because I know bhikkhunis in this country do. When one comes from the East, they may not necessarily do it if one comes from the West, but from the East they do, because they really want to be seen as good and well trained. I remember when I was at Bhante Gunaratana's, and he said, well, the Westerners love to come to the monastery, but they don't financially support the monastery. The Easterners do. And so the only way that I can keep this is that I'm going to have to bring some monks from Thailand to come and train these Western bhikkhunis in the traditional traditions so that the Thai lay disciples will respect them enough to support the temple. And that's how it will continue. And that's what he did, you know, so that was fine with me. It's just, so when they brought this monk and we all came, you know, to receive him, and he was going to set in some training and get us all straight. And I looked and all of them got on the floor and started groveling, and I didn't. He said, now these are well-trained bhikkhunis right here. My feelings were not hurt at all. But I knew that it wasn't going to be the place for me. So rather than cause trouble for them, you know, then I just decided that I would not, you know, they loved Panyadeepa, but for me, I wasn't inclined, you know, to go in that way. So to not cause trouble for them, I left and I disassociated and created a harder path for me. But I think it was a more correct path for me than to create trouble in their Sangha, because I was not going to toe the line. You know, I felt like there was a different work that I needed to do, and that would not allow me to do that. So, so I appreciate that. I also appreciate that in those countries, their sense of timing is a little different. You all have trained me well. I'm very much closer to starting on time and ending somewhere on time, near on time. But in those countries, it's just whenever, you know, whenever the teacher calls, they gather, but it's okay for them to sleep though. So they sleep half the time. You know, if it gets along, they like just nod off. It doesn't matter. To just be there. You know. So I'm not sure. I'm just saying I'm not, just Panyawadi, I'm not making a blanket statement. I'm just saying I'm not sure how much awareness and mindfulness is present. If you're sleeping half the time, you know, I would rather have something shorter and one can be focused and concentrated on it than to say, I can give a 6-hour Dharma. I can give a 6-hour Dharma talk though. I tell you that, I can do that. But if I gave a 6-hour Dharma talk, you know, generally you would be able to stay awake unless you were like so exhausted. Like Audrey Garner, I knew he was so exhausted and he was sick too. But yet he made the attempt to be there. It was so funny watching him. It was really funny. But it wasn't that I talked. So slowly. No, she said, yeah, she said, don't get it confused. He's not from Thailand. That's where she's from. He said, he's from Burma. And we're just having a good. Burma, yes. Yeah. 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 So, yeah.
Recording in progress.
Uh, this is really good. Okay, so this is just within the family, right? Who's online? Joe. Which Jim? Okay. Hey, Jim. And Fordham. Okay, so we had some visitors on Sunday, and we were just kind of musing about that experience, and what we're taking away from it. So I guess we should get serious now, right? Okay, I'm ready. Incense burning, all space is filled with the fragrance. All Buddhas smell it from afar. Auspicious clouds gather everywhere. With utmost sincerity, all Buddhas appear. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. We pay homage, we offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. Oh, blessed one, Shakyamuni Buddha, precious treasury of compassion, bestower of supreme inner peace, you who love all beings without exception, are the source of happiness and goodness, and you guide us to the liberating path. Your body is a wish-fulfilling jewel. Your speech is supreme purifying nectar. And your mind is refuge for all living beings. With folded hands I turn to you, supreme, unchanging friend. I request from the depths of my heart, please give me the light of your wisdom to dispel the darkness of my mind and to heal my mental continuum. Please nourish me with your goodness, that I in turn may nourish all
with an unceasing banquet of delight through your compassionate intention, your blessings and virtuous deeds, and my strong wish to rely upon you. May all suffering quickly cease, and all happiness and joy be fulfilled, and may holy Dharma flourish forevermore.
I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed to say that we're on page 38. But that's the beginning of chapter 2. And so the purpose or I will say the advantage of living with a master is that one can enter what's called the quick path. And the quick path is to be able to leapfrog in understanding based on the initiations that you receive from the master, and that's according to the master's level. And while I've had some really good teachers, scholars, I never saw where the Buddha praised scholars. And we know some scholars, we highly respect them, but it was through the direct experience. It was the direct experience that he praised. And so although scholars may be good with linguistics, explaining things, laying them out in a way that intellectually we can understand it, that is not where one's attainment on the path will be. It is through the actual realization that one has to have in order to understand the Dharma, and for one to realize the mind of a Buddha. You know, the whole purpose of studying and then practicing or putting into practice what one has studied until one actually realizes it is to have the mind of a Buddha. You know, so it's not like Buddhism is a thing. We might call it a religion because words aren't satisfactory at truly describing reality. The words are just insufficient, but we come up with words that point in a certain direction. The words are not the thing, they point in a certain direction. The words are not the ultimate thing, they point in a certain direction. So words then are less in quality than an actual experience. You can say something, but when you're describing it, it's not the actual experience. The actual experience lets you know all the qualities of something. The words point to the qualities, but are not the quality of the thing. No matter what experience you have, whether you're riding on a gondola or whether you fall in love with somebody, the actual experience, direct experience of it is far superior to all the words that you can use to try to explain it or to describe it. Isn't that so? And so we should not get caught up so much in the words, but see where they're pointing and try to just go in that direction. And when we do get too caught up in the words, then it becomes like a dogma. It becomes something that it's heavy. It draws people down. It creates I was going to say a false narrative, but it's worse than even that. It it takes it from the bullseye. If you could think of reality as the bullseye, and that's the ultimate truth, the absolute truth. And whenever we use any kind of shading around that, then that's away from the bullseye. So we could never, ever, ever hit the absolute bullseye when there is any aspect of untruth through delusion in what we see, hear, taste, touch, smell, or think, and that's why it's so difficult for people to attain enlightenment today, because we're off of the mark of the bullseye. So Buddha Master talks about the importance of being absolutely truthful in our interactions with others and in our interactions with ourselves. That's not 90% of our work in the beginning, is to really learn how to be like that, because we learn how to be in the world. We're thinking about how to explain it to a person, so that we won't be misunderstood. We're thinking about how to share something with somebody that we won't be misunderstood. We're thinking about how to explain it to somebody that, so we're always thinking about how to word things, or how to express things, or how to speak about things, or what things we show and don't show, until, we're on the fringes of the bullseye, never hitting the bullseye, because that might cost us something. It might cost us something. And that fear of like being like that straight arrow that hits the bullseye, what it might cost us, causes us to figure out how to say things, how to do things, how to be with things, how to be with others in a way that we get what we want, or maybe that we get what we need, or what we think we need, but so that's where Buddha Master says we have to start right there. Yes. Bullseye is like a target. And if you were doing like target practice, like maybe like with a bow and arrow, and you try to hit the center, but when you first start, you can't hit the center. You're not skilled enough. So your arrows go all out there. They may not hit the board at all. They shoot over here, shoot over there. But the bullseye is dead in the center. That's what I mean by bullseye. So there's a lot that we have to do in and learning how to speak truthfully, abandoning the fear of what that means to us. And because sometimes it does sometimes it does cost us. Sometimes it costs us to speak truthfully. And we have to abandon the fear of speaking truthfully. But as we get used to that, that becomes a more normal way of life. We find a different kind of pleasure in being able to speak more truthfully, because we don't worry. In the beginning, we might worry about what that costs us, but later on, we stop worrying about what it costs us, because we understand the sweetness of it, and we understand the fruit of it, and we understand what it sets us up for. So in the beginning, it may cause us loss, but as we go further, we start to gather or to receive gain from it, because it sets us up in a mode for a certain kind of good fortune, a certain kind of a capacity to understand and receive things, receive the fruit of that truthfulness that's in us. So yes, it costs us something, because we built maybe our house on some kind of quicksand, but as we move from the quicksand to the firm soil, the firm footing, understanding the process, understanding that what we have gained through means that weren't as perfected, we have to let those go, but then we will gain that which is based upon perfection. And the joy of that perfection starts to arise. And that's why when people start on a path to goodness and to wholeness, they lose a lot of things. That's why they suffer a lot of things. They go through things because they're really letting go of what was ill-gotten, and what they are actually receiving now has the highest merit, the highest virtue. And soon, very soon, they outpace what they had before. So here she says in chapter 2 that she Zaza used to be up at Southern Dharma, and she was well known around this area. I didn't know her at that time, but she moved out to California, and then these things started happening when she moved out to California, and she lived a daily life with Buddha Master. So they bought property out there, and wherever she was living was her backyard fence came up against his backyard fence, and she was just about the only English speaker. Well, she was the only English speaker who lived with him, and so he spent a lot of time with her, but not speaking English. They always had to have a translator. But that's why, if you look at, I want you to see what's happening right here with Sada, and how Sada is learning the Dharma without having a translator. I mean, she'll come to me all the time and tell me what she's understood and what she's learned. So I no longer worry, sorry, Sada, I no longer worry about getting her English classes. I probably should. If you want them, listen, let me know, but you're doing okay without them. Because she's learning something, but what she's doing is sifting the essence of it. So it might be even better that she not get all caught up in our words, because she's getting the essence of it. And that's the real thing. That's the real thing. And I look at how much joy is coming. When she first came, she was she was such a sad sack. Because she really was. She really was. And then she came, and when she did come, don't smile, don't smile. She'd tell everybody, no smile, no smile. But the joy now is spontaneous for her, and so realizing this kind of it's a kind of emptiness that is it's magical. And in its experience, and it's not just when we say Buddhist, I don't just mean Buddhist like the label Buddhist. We're reminded all the time that all Buddhists are not Buddhist. It is a type of awakened mind. And so. If we don't get that, we will think it's our little religious sect, and only if you come in here and you do it, only if you get it our way will you have it. I don't mean that at all. Now, I will say that when we're living together, there is a certain harmony that has to exist in a home. You can't have chaos in a home and think anybody is going to make any progress. But I mean, as a spiritual practice in general, don't think that only Buddhists awaken. That's what I'm saying. Matter of fact, I've just snatched Jesus out of Christianity and just said Jesus was a Buddhist. I'm pretty sure he was a bodhisattva, making his appearance here and there, according to his capacities, and showing us, giving us an example of. They called it the sacrificial lamb, but giving us an example of how a bodhisattva lives in the world. So in case you think it's all, peaches and, and cherries, it's not like that. We go through things. We do suffer things, but the suffering cannot be compared to the incomparable joy that we realize, in going in our service to living beings. And that's what one should know, that there is this way that even though there is some painfulness in our physicality because of our human state, our human condition, there is a mind that is freed at the same time that one feels a certain liberty and a certain joy that's incomparable. That nothing in this world, the joys of ordinary human life could replace for us. So when we start thinking about emptiness, we start thinking that, we start thinking about the truth of the universe. And so we have a phrase, form is emptiness, and emptiness is form. It's like a mind that doesn't really rest or settle anywhere. And the master shows this. A master has the quality to be able to display this. This is why, and this is what gives a person the confidence in the path. Now, I have confidence in Buddha Master, but I also have confidence in Zazi, because I've looked at what she could tolerate and what she could overcome in her personal life. Her capacity to tolerate things is not normal. It's not ordinary. The things that she could endure, are not ordinary. And when I would stay with different masters and I witnessed certain things, they gave me an overreaching capacity to endure certain things. For instance, I would speak about Ching Hai, and how when I first met her and wasn't even thinking about her, wasn't even looking for her, I was just going to eat, going to a vegetarian restaurant. And I'm taking my Qigong students with me to after a class to a vegetarian restaurant, and they have some books on a rack, and she steps right out of the book and starts talking to me, and so I didn't know what that was. And I had studied with the top Qigong masters in this country. Panyadipa's Kung Fu Tenshin Pai master was the world champion, the first American world champion. And that's why they had to do it publicly, because nobody in China would believe that American won it. And so, so we were with the top echelon, and here she comes and steps out of a book. And I had never experienced anything like that before, So when I say I believe it, you might like that, but if you had witnessed it, you would know for a fact that was a real thing, And then somebody comes and said, they saw me there because I had a meltdown. And somebody came and said, would you like to know what just happened? I'm like, yes, I would, and they took me in the back and they explained, and then we went off on that journey. And from that journey led to another one, led to another one, led to another one. And I find myself in my story in her book. And I don't know when it was, 2004, I think it was, 2004, she comes to Hendersonville. She comes to Asheville, I think. And they called me from Asheville, and I invited her down here to Hendersonville. So that's how long it's been now. It's 2022. So some things take a long time to mature, but even though they may take a long time to mature, once they mature, they take a short time, for the fruit to come forward, because they've been, maturing for a very, very cooking, for a very, very long time. And then that last part is really quick. And so she talked about some of the things that gave her the confidence and also the physical strength to endure many hardships. She called it, and she shared about when we don't do it here, and I just don't do it because we are Westerners, and we don't do the bathe in the Buddha. What do you all call it? I don't know if you all do it. On Buddha's birthday, they have the bathing the Buddha, because I don't feel like the Buddha was personally into birthdays, so I don't do it, but they have a ceremony where they're bathing the Buddha, and I just never do it. Well, they did it at Buddha Master's place, and it was a 2-ton, that's 4,000-pound tub, right? And so in the 4,000-pound tub, and then once you have the ceremony, then you have to like pour the water off into the smaller thing, which means you have to be able to lift the tub and pour it. And of course, you have to have a certain amount of realization to lift 4,000 pounds. But here, her roommate and this old man, because of their level of realization, they were able to easily lift the tub. And so it let her see that even while living in this mundane world, that some of these things exist. Now, we call them miracles, but they're not really miracles. There are other laws of the universe, just like aerodynamics supersedes the law of gravity. Doesn't mean the law of gravity doesn't exist, it does. But aerodynamics, the law of aerodynamics supersedes the law of gravity. And so there are certain conditions for all things to work as they should work. But when you meet those conditions, they work. And if we think of this as opposed to thinking of them as miracles, we understand how a quote miracle can work. And so she talked for the next few pages about different things, and it was all very very interesting. And the whole rest of that chapter was around that sometimes, as Buddha Master would give a Dharma talk, like a parasol or umbrella over his head, the nectar would just rain down, or different things like that. And the reason why, some of you may know, Penwa was a highly realized, His Holiness Penwa Rinpoche. And he was, I don't know what his tradition was. Penwa. I'm not sure. He's not Galupa. Okay, so he's in one of the Vajrayana, 5 Vajrayana traditions, but he's well known amongst Westerners who practice Vajrayana. He's a Tibetan eminence. And he told Buddha Master, he said, because there are so many in China and places like that who have these high level abilities, you have to show supernatural powers. I said, now you don't have to show them the Westerners because for the most part, we don't know anybody who has any. So to show something is like, you feel like it's some kind of a trickery. But for those disciples he had at that time, he needed to show that even get them to be able to listen to him, to be able to enter into these higher, and you could call them technologies, we call them dharmas, and they are produced in the body with the mind from the place of the 8th consciousness, and so that's what he did, and he would always follow it up with saying, "I'm just an humble being, a most ordinary practitioner." So she went on to her life in being a disciple with him, and she talked about how she grew up. And I think it's important for you to review your life from time to time, because if you do, you'll see a thread of how you're on a path, an evolutionary path. And if you don't look at it, you will think of yourself as solid, as unchanging, and you won't recognize the moment by moment shifts that you are experiencing. And so you start to think of yourself really like as something concrete, as opposed to something that's more akin to a process of movement, as opposed to a being. We use these words, a sentient being, a human being, but we're more like a process of movement, that every second there is in this world, the law of the universe is that of impermanence. So something is changing every second. And we have to ask ourselves or open ourselves up to what has changed. What has changed since last year, last month, last week, yesterday? What has changed since this morning, an hour ago, 30 minutes ago, a minute ago? What has changed? And if we start looking for what has changed, we will stop seeing what appears to be fixed. And we start to see a fluidity that said that you can never dip your hand in the same river twice, And so if we had that idea about ourselves, could you imagine how much we'd be growing, how much we'd be moving? But because we think of ourselves as solid, as fixed, we get stuck in a me, a mine, and a my. And we cannot go further as long as we're stuck, because along with me, my, and mine comes feelings of possession, of grasping, holding on to, and it creates a kind of stagnation that what we're actually trying to flow with becomes not possible. And we can't see it because we're stuck through seeing life through the lens of me, my, and mine. And so that's the first thing that we have to cultivate, is that mind of impermanence that recognizes, that everything is fluid in our life. We don't have ownership or possession of anything, no matter how much we say we do, and begin to release that in the mind stream, And so I talk so much about how much I have enjoyed my life with Panyadeepa, but that ended on May the 15th. On May the 16th, I was on to May 16th. And it's not because I didn't love Panyadeepa, but because I'm not attached to him, because I've done enough practice so that the sorrow didn't have to be there, or the sense of possession in something I possess is now gone. So poor and pitiful me, and then thinking like today, how many other people's loved ones died? A lot, not just mine, And so if you hold things lightly in that way, there's a taste of freedom in it, I tell you, that is indescribable, unfathomable. And it keeps down the things that oppress us. It keeps down the things that cause us to not run the distance, to not be able to be fully what we could be or should be in the moment. And to know this, you have to experience it for yourself. But once you experience it for yourself, and I don't mean like somebody you didn't care that much whether they died or not. I mean, but somebody that you really cared, about whether they were present in your life. But once you experience this, then there's a truth that that this world cannot take that joy away from you. It's a kind of power, and it cannot be taken from you. It says in Buddhism, you must be very careful not to do, say, or think negative things that will generate negative karma. And you must also not do anything that will cause others to do so either. So sometimes we do things, fruit in our life. It means like if you do an unwholesome action, unwholesome fruit follows. But sometimes we can do an unwholesome action, but in doing it, it aggravates or it causes someone else to move into an unwholesome space. And so we have to be careful or think about what we do that won't cause us to get into that state, but also will not cause another person to. That's loving another person. It's not putting them into a place or a position that causes them to get into a negative state as well. So I don't know about you, but I'm always thinking about what about my action or what decision I come to. And that's why I vacillate a lot. Because if I think about it at 9 o'clock and the way I'm feeling about something at 9 o'clock, if I sit until 10 o'clock, I might think about it entirely differently, because between 9 and 10, I have considered myself. I have considered, how I'm holding it. I run through my whole tick list of what the Dharma says of how I should think about things. And by 10 o'clock, I've come to a different conclusion about how I should think about it. Maybe I have enough strength to hold this. Maybe I don't have enough. Maybe it's unreasonable to put it on too many other people. So we can never say, well, this is my decision. I've made it. And we should go back and reflect again and again and again and again. And if we get into that habit, that hindsight will become foresight, and that will become insight. And so it's the insight that we're after, the insight of one who is awake, the insight of one who has 360-degree vision, not just able to see what's in front of them, but what's in front, what's behind, to the left, to the right, in the cardinal directions, all around. And that's the kind of wisdom that we are after. She said, I had begun my spiritual quest, my true spiritual quest now. I realized I was no longer seeking answers in traditional world religion. And I was seeking an end to the suffering that I was experiencing and that I saw in others. And so she talked about her time in Zen. And if you know Zazie, you can tell she's been in Zen. When I was in the Zen temple, they were glad when I left. I was too. Because it was like it was too regimented for me. I believe that when people are undisciplined, that they need some regimen. I know that I was undisciplined and regimen was good for me, but too much is not good, And I just said, I just don't see how that's going to help you, at what you're trying to accomplish. But they were drawn to that because that was, sort of like how they were. So one who's like drawn to a lot of joy and ecstasy may, seek out something else, but they already have a preponderance of that. They need some balancing on this ones. And then we have some that are just lukewarm. And I don't know if the Buddha said it, but I know, I don't know, maybe it was Apostle Paul said, no, I think it was Jesus said and then they said not to be hot or cold, but especially don't be lukewarm or I'll just spew you out of my mouth. So, don't be lukewarm, stand for something, and go in one way, because then you can find out what you need to balance yourself. So there's two kinds of balances that we need. One is a balance of compassion and wisdom, but the other kind of balance we need is in our temperament and in our propensities, because this is where we engage with one another, just in our day-to-day life or our ordinary reality. And if we're able to do good at that, we create the conditions that we will be made aware of the other dimensions of reality, and we can easily enter into these dimensions. So she says here, I'm just reading what she says. I have a theory, but it's only my own, and it's not at all verified, that anyone who's a serious student of His Holiness Dorje Chang is probably a reincarnated Buddhist of some sort, as you would need good fortune from past lives of training in Buddhism to have the karmic affinity to be able to meet, encounter his teachings, and to be able to practice them in this life. Although there are specific dharmas and practices that we learn to help us on the path, the real work or effort must be in reflecting on and changing our daily behavior. We change our lives by changing our karma, what we think, what we say, and what we do minute by minute. And I think that that's probably true. I've come to the same conclusion. Not everybody can receive Buddha Master's teachings, We're loving learning about Dharma. We're not like loving doing Dharma. We like to talk about things and learn the 4 this, the 8 that, and the 16 other, and we like doing some practices and stuff like that. But in terms of constantly reflecting on and changing our minute by minute behavior, we're not so much interested in that. We get into our groove and we just kind of stay there with that. But if we think about being a process as opposed to something concrete, this is where the congruency comes in. And we are constantly reflecting and shifting. And that dynamic just becomes so wonderful. So that when we overcome something, something that's been difficult for us, something that we thought was a challenge, and we find out how easily we can do that, how easily we can let go of what it is we want to do, and how easily we sense a kind of non-stickiness, a kind of freedom. It's hard to describe, but we know that it's not ordinary. We know that it's not an ordinary freedom. We know that it's not an easy behavior. We know that it's not something that just anybody can do, and we know that it was not without effort. We can't say, oh, no, because it was nothing. Yes, it absolutely took effort until it didn't take effort. And we understood that the effort that it took was the willingness, just as am I willing? That's all. And so we see that the willingness to do things becomes more than what we think of as our try. Trying can get tiring, but when we have a willingness, we don't have to try so hard. It becomes easy to do something because the willingness is there. So she started talking about, the rainbow crystal lights and the earthen mandala with auspicious grass of the 4 jewels, and the experiences that she was having, but that these caused her to eliminate certain obstacles. But more importantly than that, it reinforced her resolve to practice and to help others learn true Buddha Dharma. And that's how she became his foremost Western student. And I think she has 9 students, and I am hers, or I think the last time he took me as a direct disciple, and then all of them he took also as direct disciples. And so something changed, and then he was gone. So I'm going to skip now because all of these others just talk about when one in Vajrayana, how one gets a certain recognition is they can't just, their students can't make them that. They can't give themselves any kind of a title or authority. It has to come from already recognized masters. And so you have levels. You have levels of venerable. Then you have, I think you have venerable. You have master, or in some places, venerable is master. And then you have, or Rinpoche, great Rinpoche, Dharma King, great Dharma King, His Eminence, His Holiness, and I think that's as high as they go. But as his eminences and the holinesses said, well, Dorji Chang's realization is higher than ours, and then that's when they started conferring upon him the title of a Buddha master, and they saw Vajradhara, which would be Dorji Chang in Chinese, as who he was an emanation of. And so this was a normal, ordinary, the way they do things in, and which means nothing to us, because I take Buddha Master at his word. And his word, don't get caught up in personality. He said, learn and practice and realize the teaching, what I teach. So where they were caught up in the personality, they could not get to the teachings because they were so enamored with the personality. But we have the teachings, and he said these are all you need. For wisdom, you need the what is it? The explaining the truth. What's the first word? Through the Heart Sutra. Well, I think it means explaining the truth through the Heart Sutra. Then on the compassion side, the Mahamudra of Liberation. There are few things that you need in order to be ready for the Mahamudra of Liberation and the Heart Sutra. One is the Dharma of what is cultivation. The other is the learning from Buddha. He said basically that's all you need. You just have to work on a day by day, minute by minute, basis of reflecting on your thought, speech, and action. That's all you need. And the wisdom will come up because the Buddha nature is your own essential nature. That's it. And if you do that, he said you don't need a special initiation by anybody, not even by me. You don't need anything, but it will show up. The fruit will show up in your life. Whatever you're planting will show up. Also, you will also be able to see what is being planted around you. You will see what's growing up around you. the wisdom will be there to see and to know what's showing up in your environment. And so so it becomes a very easy path and a very simple path. We are already all the way up to page 74. You can, and I have redeemed myself and caught up. If you want to see, just so that you'll know, she went on a tour of America, Zazie, and she went to 25. Let me see. Well, she didn't go to all 2,500 locations in every state representative of all the major sects. I don't think she got, but she did a lot of them, like maybe 2,000 of them. And she put them in the libraries, and they were a book that speaks of his proficiency in the five vidyas. And if anybody's been to his museums and look at his work, his art, it's just unbelievable. And it's not, like just one form of art or three forms of art. It's any form of art. There's the art, the craftsmanship, the sound vidya, the healing vidya. He made healing teas. He gave the patents to China, to the government to take care of their people. There's a causal logic, the Buddhist logic and inner realization in these five. So our Learning from Buddha Academy has a five vidyas. One thing he said is you have to have a five vidyas school. And these are the five things that you will develop people in. And instead you develop lay people in these five areas as well, because they're 99.99% of the people that are in the world. So how do they show their brightness in the world? By using or mastering these dharmas that you're practicing, so that these vidyas will arise in them and be able, and in this way, they will be able to help living beings. But we help living beings by teaching them how to take care of themselves, how to plant their own seeds that produce their own fruit. We can't do it for them. It's not our job to monitor or babysit or whatever, but for those, and of course, to also not force anything. It's just when the timing is right. So the timing is not right, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that the causes and conditions are not there. So we can think not in a negative way when the causes and conditions are not there. It's just that they're not. Or if the bus stops at 7th and T, and if you're at 14th and F, it's a good chance you're not going to catch that bus because you're not like right at the right stop, So let someone catch the bus that's at 14th and F, going to that destination that they seek to desire, and desire to go to. But if our bus is at this intersection, catch this and go to ours. So I'd like to spend my last few minutes today, since we're all the way up on page 74, is the 8 fundamentals of fundamental right views of cultivation. And so I have to say that when I first began this Dharma of cultivation, we have more copies. We don't, they're all gone. I ordered 20 the first time, 50 the second time. Okay, could you look? Okay, so next week, if we'll bring some up if we have. So if you haven't read the Dharma Cultivation, you should get a copy. And I mean, we will provide, and it's on the internet as well. You can just Google the Dharma Cultivation um, by Dorji Chang, and it's free. But this is a nice book that you can write in and so forth. And we make it relevant. I like it because it's in big letters. And so we talk about the fundamental right views, and a lot of people are trying to cultivate, but they're not successful at it, just simply because they're not taking things in right order. If I was going to now, I think Alex knows a little bit about gardening, so I might say something wrong, but you understand what I mean. Like first, we might have to like dig up I don't know, till the ground, loosen the soil. We can't just go out there and start throwing seeds, and buy the best seeds too, and put them out there and think we're going to have a bumper crop because we got the best seeds in town. But we might have to go and break up that soil. We might have to go and comb it and get the rocks out. We might have to fertilize it by whatever means to prepare the soil. We might have to, and then next we plant the seeds. We might have to water them, but not in the daytime, because as they start to sprout, it burns the leaves or it kills them or something. But in the shade of the evening, we might, as things start to grow, so there's a step-by-step means that we do this to have, we might have to be careful about what we plant right next to each other, because one plant supports the growth of another and one hinders the growth of another. I don't know about these kinds of things, but that makes more sense to me than helter-skelter throwing seeds and hoping something grows and that we have a bumper crop. Is not possible. And in the same way, cultivating right views. Now, we have two things, one called the ennobling Eightfold Path, and then before we even get to that, the first of activity, or the first thing we embark upon on the Eightfold Path, is right view. And we talk about right view, but in a kind of a narrow way. But Buddha Master breaks down right view into 8 fundamental right views. Impermanence first, having a mind of impermanence, a mind with firm belief. Then a mind of renunciation, meaning a mind determined to leave the cycle of reincarnation or rebirth, linking consciousness. I don't know. I'm not tethered to anybody. I don't want to come back again and again. Certainly not to this world, especially no time soon. Because I don't think it's going to be that good right here. But there's many places that we could be. But if our conduct allows entrance into that vibratory field. If it doesn't, we can't get into that space. I'm here because of my vibration. This is where I land. So it's not your fault. And when I say I don't mean the Panyawadi I. I mean this being that has manifested as a result of a karmic influence, whose mother named her Diane and whose teacher named her Panavati. That's who I'm speaking of. I'm not speaking of an egoic me. I'm speaking of a condition that has arisen based on the combination of conditionality and finding its place or its vibration in the field of the human realm with an egg and a sperm and a rebirth linking consciousness. And for simplicity's sake, we just say I. But we work at not thinking of it as an I. And that's where it becomes a little difficult. And that's where the words become difficult. And that's why you have to think beyond the words to really get the right sense and the right meaning and the right flavor of this. And so, so renunciation is a mind determined to leave this cycle of reincarnation. And to do that, we move to higher and higher levels of non-grasping and non-clinging. The fourth is a mind with true vows. You know, and the vow, when one takes a vow, one makes a vow to oneself. And then that's what helps one enter into the truth of that thing, because they hold that vow as sacrosanct. You know, the fifth is a mind of diligence. We become diligent at what we undertake. The sixth is the precepts, and we take the precepts we intend to keep. And then the seventh is, and that's where our meditation comes in, dhyana and samadhi. And one problem in the West is we like meditation mostly because for those of us who are anxiety ridden and so forth, it calms us down. For those of us who are just like ordinary, when we are good at it, it brings us into states of joy and bliss. And so we like it for those reasons. And so we start with and because that's what we were introduced to. But the Buddha put that at the end of the process, not at the beginning of the process, you know. And so we started at the back of the book. And we have to go back and pick up all of these other, you could actually call them disciplines that make it so when we get to meditation, it will be right meditation. Right meaning not like correct, but right meaning all the pieces coming together, you know, that make that meditation effective, and that effortless in the sense of I cannot make it happen. You know, all I can do is present myself by the letting go, and I meet the wisdom that catapults me into those mind states. And so I felt that we're going to start doing some of our meditation practice now that we've spent a year, I think, on what is cultivation. And I don't know if it's been a year or not, but what I know is that in the last few months, it hasn't been long, that I've seen a tremendous shift in our willingness to work on our stuff, you know, and not to work on other people's stuff, but, you know, to each working on their own stuff. And I've seen the fruit of that in the practice. So now we're shifting to Sutta number 128 in the Majjhima Nikaya, and where he starts talking about, I need to let you go. Where he starts talking about, have you had any supernormal states in your meditation? So for us to get to that, I'd like to do a refresher on meditation, and it will be Anapanasati and the jhanas, and then we will see where that takes us, because we've met the conditions of blending like milk and water. Yeah. Okay. I thank you so much for coming today. May you be well and happy and peaceful. May no harm come to you, no danger. May you always meet the inevitable difficulties of life. Thank you.